Democracy in the United States is dying. Trump is known to admire dictators and is aggressively trying to turn the U.S. into a failed democracy, just like they did in their countries. This video series shares 40 examples of how the United States in the early 21st century is looking like Germany in the early 20th century in some concerning ways. Trump appears to be copying Hitler's playbook, and MAGA is concerningly similar to the early days of the Nazi Party. The first video in this series sets out some important context. The qualifiers it includes, shown here, apply to all of the videos in the series. And now, Part 6, a comparison of how each leader suppresses civil rights. Number 29. Both leaders said what they were going to do once in office, but it was glossed over by supporters. Hitler said a lot of his personal beliefs and hateful ideas in his autobiography and political manifesto, Mein Kampf. He repeated these same talking points at every speech, mixed in with the Make Germany Great Again stuff. He disparaged the Jews and even hinted at starting a world war to restore Germany to what he saw as its rightful place. Trump told us who he is when he was campaigning and had shown us a sample when he was president before he had really figured out the dictator game. In his speeches, he said he would aggressively deport immigrants and implement ridiculous tariffs. He's done both those things. Both leaders said what they were going to do out loud. People just didn't believe them. They thought it was all an act, just to look tough and get elected. People just held on to the bits they liked and downplayed the bits they didn't like. Same in historical Germany as it is in the United States 100 years later. Number 30. Both leaders used a convenient civil crisis and dubious legal orders to suppress civil rights. Hitler was quick to use the opportunity presented by the Reichstag fire to convince the German president, Paul von Hindenburg, to order the Reichstag fire decree discussed previously. This was an emergency order suspending civil rights for all Germans. It's debated if it was legal, given the fire was not really an uprising justifying a national crisis. Trump, once in office, immediately used an exaggerated immigration crisis as justification to enact the Alien Enemies Act of 1798. This act allowed him to imprison and deport suspected immigrants without due process. It's debated if Trump's use of this act was even legal, given that the act was intended only for times of war. The end result is that both leaders took away civil liberties legally through dubious orders that were intended for use only in extreme situations. Number 31. Both leaders used special police forces to enforce their agenda and carry out their personal vendettas. Both leaders referred to their personal enemies as the nation's enemy from within, made statements that dehumanize their enemies, and implicitly condoned violence from their supporters. Hitler used a special police force to carry out his agenda and personal vendettas against his political opponents, leftists, Jews, anyone else he considered his enemies. These special police forces were the Gestapo, the SA, and the SS. Trump uses a de facto special police force to carry out his agenda and personal vendettas against his political opponents, leftists, immigrants, and anyone else he considers his enemies. These special police forces are the DOJ, ICE, and the FBI. Number 32. Both movements used voter suppression tactics. Hitler and the Nazis used voter suppression and intimidation to affect voting and legislative outcomes. The SA and the SS monitored voting to ensure that it was fair, which in reality just meant that they harassed and terrorized people to ensure that the Nazis won the key elections at the time. MAGA also has paramilitary members wearing tactical gear along with their MAGA patches and hats, carrying rifles. They loiter around outside of voting locations asking people who they're voting for. The purpose is not to influence who the people are voting for. The purpose is more to intimidate people who are not MAGA supporters into not showing up to vote at all. Once the Nazis got into positions of sufficient power, they made their party the only party that was legal. So by definition, that made them the only party that would have representatives in the government. Trump and MAGA Republicans use gerrymandering and voter ID laws to make it inconvenient and expensive to vote, which disproportionately affects people of color and Democrats. These actions aren't new, but they're all an attempt to illegitimately keep the MAGA Republicans in control of the government. Number 33. Both leaders censored the media and controlled the media's narrative. Hitler heavily controlled and censored the media to never say anything bad about him and to publish Nazi propaganda. The Völkischer Beobachter and Der Angriff were newspapers published by the Nazis that were completely full of Nazi propaganda. Trump also heavily controls and censors the media, with ABC and CBS among the first ones to already fall. Newsmax, OAN, and Fox News are all news outlets published by MAGA that are shamelessly full of MAGA propaganda and talking points. Both leaders saw the advantage to their objectives in crushing free speech and destroying freedom of the press. And both leaders aggressively pursued either silencing or leveraging the media toward their agendas and their false narratives. Number 34. Both leaders sought to control what was taught in schools and universities. The Nazis forced their agenda into school curricula. They taught in geography that Germany was being overran by the other and deserved a larger territory. In biology, German children were taught that Aryans were superior to other races. In math and physics, they used military problems as examples. And in literature, their writing assignments were on the superiority of the Nazi ideals. MAGA has forced their agenda into school curricula also. They teach school children that critical race theory is racist against white people. In biology, they teach against evolution and that creationism is a valid theory. Schools in political red states have even started teaching the myth that Trump only lost the 2020 election because it was rigged by crooked Democrats. This video discussed similarities between the Nazis and MAGA and how each leader suppresses civil rights. In the next video, we'll look at how each leader commits greater and longer-term harm. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to sharpen the way you might think.